Who cares? About to drop like Shinnin', so be prepared. Don't act scared, eyes wider than Ric Flair. You smell like you fake, go stand over there. Where's my Dominican pound cake with the Haitian sprinkles? Some men sit down when they piss, they go tinkle. Supposed to be grown, but it sound like Rocky Bullwinkle. Mortal Kombat, whoopsie. I bought a bag of shit coins to chart with whoopsie.
What's going on, everybody? It's your host, the Crypto Wonder. Let's get right into it. But first and foremost, hope you're doing well. And let's get right into it. So, I'm kind of going to do my version of a breakdown of the 47-minute or so clip of Richard Heart's latest recorded dialogue that he made this past week. First and foremost, I want to say that I think one, I'm glad he made the recording for the simple fact of just doing that, because in the last 6 months we've been just used to the postings, right, on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So I'm glad he did a recording, and he pretty much gave an update on a bunch of different things, but his opinion, kind of started sort of, if I could remember, with the whole thing with SBF or FTX and the SBF guy being found guilty, etc., etc. Now, and then he started talking about how custody is not the proper term to use when dealing with crypto, because you never really own anything. You just know things like your seed phrase, your private keys, or things you should know, and things of that nature, and all. Yeah. Everything's decentralized. He doesn't have everybody's money. Excuse me, and for me, for most of what he talked about personally, I'm kind of used to hearing him say a lot of these things. He's the guy who called the top. He's the giving tree of crypto. He's here to help. He cares about everybody, right? And pretty much most people can't stand him, right? That's what, kind of like what he's been saying. And the whole thing with government, now we have to pretty much create comments or send comments to the government, commentary, to combat everything that's taking place with the agencies that want to seemingly introduce regulations into crypto, et cetera, and how that's going to affect everybody. Okay, all good. But kind of try to listen to what he's not saying, And I'm going to give you a reason why. There were some people who offered their breakdowns as well. Many people just took to YouTube and, was playing the whole audio, was just breaking it down in their own way. And influencers just, pretty much shared the information online to their audience. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to point out some of the things that I found important to me, like worth noting, highlighting, right? He often talks about how he's tried to save people. You hear that all the time. And as part of some of the things that, like, I'm used to hearing it, like, okay, but this is not for me. This is for the billions of people in the world who don't even know who he is. You know, he during his talk, he was talking about how he was on the news. He was on the news, perhaps one, mainstream news show, basically telling people not to believe in these third party, these, middlemen companies like the likes of, I'm not sure if it was exactly Celsius or BlockFi, but companies like that. That he was on the news telling the world that's not crypto. Having some type of third party entity hold your money is not what crypto's all about. Okay? All right. We get that. I'm used to that. I'm used to, by now, it's like, but it's for the world. But he's not, there just seems like there's a lot of, he says he feels great that he feels great that he's not the person who actually holds anyone's money and things of that nature. But he doesn't really sound to me like he's doing 100% great. Granted, you got this SEC thing, that he's dealing with, which is aggravating, I'm sure, because, court and anything dealing with legal affairs, those are dreadful types of situations and gloomy things that's not the first thing that people want to deal with in their everyday lives. That might weigh on him somewhat, like, I get that he's building his position in a way where he's educating through Twitter and sharing information and becoming strategic and telling people the do's and don'ts of crypto and then how these things work. But you could tell he's just not quite content, in a sense where, he still talks about how there are many people in this space who have more recognition than he does, right? Who have greater followings than he does, who are more popular than him. He says these things, and it brings me back to years past when I used to think to myself, wow, this guy he deals with some inner conflict, in a sense where he's conflicted, in a sense, because it's just my opinion, because you have a bunch of people who may very well be more popular than you in crypto. And we know RH's mission is to, seek glory in whatever level and however whatever that means to him personally. That's his mission, to seek glory. Now, when you look at your counterparts as far as your peers in the crypto industry, and you see that they are much more popular, they have, bigger following, or if they have a social media presence is much larger than yours, and they're much more, I guess, appreciated and liked than you are, and things of that nature, like that makes him feel bad. And those are things that still bother him to this day, right? Like years ago, he was saying these same things this whole time. And when he was making audio and videos, not audio, but videos and streaming, you would hear this all the time, right? And he would also denote that those same individuals are people who have hurt their own communities, right? Like people who've been in crypto a long time, and even founders and people who promote, just folks who are just widely popular and seemingly influential, like very influential in the crypto space, much more than he is, have much more credit, and have not done anything remotely close to what he's done by way of being giving, by way of giving information and caring about people, right? So it's like he seemed like he's very hurt. It's true. He does seem like he's still like in a space where it's just perhaps depressed, disappointed. You know, those are the things that I that's what I kind of picked up, because he mentioned certain things like, you know, should he, and we know with the with understanding how decentralization works and how now go.hex.com is no longer the website as we knew it. It's just a place where you could get links, you know, to work directly with quote unquote the contract or with Hex, and where you decide what to do with it direct without any type of, without the server that once was. You can see that he seems like he's just still not settled. He's still not settled. You know, he gave examples and referred to if he's no longer alive, right? If he's no longer living, then Hex would continue, which we understand. That's the nature of how things operate in this space and how it goes. You know, these things are immutable, right? Resistant, permissionless, censorship resistant, rather. It will continue. But you saying these things, it's like I don't know if he's facing some type of midlife crisis in a way, middle age type issues. I don't know. It's just observations. I'm just talking mess, maybe. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker and off base. Who knows? But it's some of these things that, I mean, we understand that. Like some of us, we understand. Like if everything were to change and you know, it's not what we want. But if something like that were to happen and he would just no longer be around, you know, you could imagine what type of reverberations it would happen in the community and with these coins. But then, you know, you could always refer to what the founder of Bitcoin did. You could always go back to that and see, okay, this person or persons, group, whatever you want to call it, by way of Satoshi's no longer here, no longer around, or at least no longer actively communicating, unless you see, you know, any type of coin movement, the million Bitcoins that he has. If you see, you know, any wallet movement in that wallet, it's been quiet for years. And we've seen how the community has gone and what Bitcoin has done. So, but just for him to just say some of these things, I just found that to be a little odd. You know? I'm pretty sure, like, see, he came into space when most of us weren't here. When he was around, most of us weren't. Right? So he came up side by side with other people, or I consider his peers, other OG founders, real OGs, not the OG you hear here in Hex. No, real people in the beginning, early days, before Mt. Gox type stuff. When there was only one exchange or whatever, right? When people could acquire Bitcoin through faucets, easy. Where it was just not taken serious as it is today. Where the network effect was a lot different. A lot weaker than it is now. Because people didn't know. But, you know, the space wasn't as big as it is now. It's weird because I see him punching, like he's punching up, he's punching sideways, right? In a sense where, he's not afraid to debate anyone about what he knows relative to crypto, even his counterparts. And I'm talking about other founders too, other founders of either exchanges or blockchains or whatever, who've been early. I mean, long time ago. He's not afraid to go toe to toe with anybody. And he's not afraid to sort of like punch up, because I see him going against the so-called powers that be is a way for him to sort of punch up and educate while punching up, right? You have people in this community that I've seen. It's going to be like the beginning of next year will be 3 years that I've been participating and participate in this community, right? I've seen, like, since Pulse Chain launched, I've seen people just completely change their perspectives about Richard and have gone completely against him. They've gone against Richard. Folks that were once pro Richard and Hex and staking, et cetera, have taken a completely different stance. I've seen that. And it is relative to, whatever level. It doesn't matter what level you are, whether you're a founder or whether you're just an investor, and everything in between. I've seen it. I've even seen it leading up with the frustration period during the almost full 2 years of waiting for Pulse Chain. It didn't just happen. Like, the sentiments of people really not liking Richard anymore didn't just begin this year. This was something that's been building for a while that I've noticed among different individuals. And you could hear it and you could see it because they show it on social media by way of making comments in Telegram groups, on Twitter, or even on streams. You see it, right? Founders have been more vocal now than they were before, when he had more of a presence, a vocal presence, a visual presence, right? Founders now have since, created this idea where they believe they need to take control of the reins so they could lead a community that appears to be without their leader, right? And many of the founders have also expressed disdain, disagreement, disapproval, disrespect all around. And few really understand the consequences of that and what that could cause as far as like widespread. Some founders, everybody has an agenda. Everyone is here for a reason or another. Every single person is in this crypto thing definitely to make money. They have their own personal views and their own strategies on how they want to achieve those goals, right? But some of these founders, not only do they not agree with many things Richard have done, they've also insulted and disrespected the community that rallied behind the coin that he created first. And it's the same community that these folks have disrespected that have supported them too. Which is why I find a lot of, like, there's certain things that, and this is what you find at the bottom, like Richard is not really paying attention to that, right? As much, or he's not really fighting against that right now, because it seems like he has bigger fish to fry. He certainly has bigger fish to fry when you have this annoying thing with this alphabet agency called SEC. We get this, right? And so it just seems to me sometimes where the people who are not Richard Heart, who claim that they want to build, they want to expand the awareness and reach out to people in other communities and things of that nature. It's not that they're necessarily wrong, but in your pursuit of doing these things and achieving these goals, you also have to understand it's important to hold true to the principles of what created this community, or what created crypto, what crypto really stands for. For example, no grifting, no scamming. That should be paramount. Everybody should understand that, but we know we can't stop people from doing what they're going to do, whether it's good or bad. People are going to scam. People get scammed every day, B. We get that. But when you're a founder, and you may have your disagreements about something, because everybody's not going to agree on everything, and you have a community of people that support your personal views or your whatever, your project, your money-making projects, and you get that support monetarily, you get that support even from from building, you want to talk about building social capital, people want to hear what you got to say. They're present for you. They're also giving you money. Yeah, it could be no expectations involved with those donations, sure. But then when you disrespect those same people, or this group of people that represents this community that this man built from the bottom, what does that say about you? Number one. And number two, it's crazy because it seemed like you're not important enough for Richard Heart to really talk about. Every builder that had everything bad to say about Richard is not important enough for Richard to even address, or else he would have done it already. Because Richard has no problem calling people out from the community. He has his eyes set on something that appears to be much larger than the scope of a builder. He's called people out before in the past, even within the last 3 years that I've been here. I've seen him call people out. Influencers. Seriously. Like, he has no issues doing that. And these influencers, I mean, an influencer, imagine, and not even somebody who built. And I'm sure other people who are astute or who've been here longer, who pay attention, can call out many people, can also agree, because I could name somebody. Is it important? Not really. But what I'm trying to say is, you guys that build and that criticize Richard probably have a great deal of animosity towards him, is because he doesn't recognize you. So now you know how he feels when his own peers who have received adoration up the wazoo, who have not even done a modicum of good as Richard has done. Imagine how you think Richard feels. So there's certain things that people are not seeing, they're missing. Right? There's certain things that I see that folks are missing. And this 47-minute thing was very telling. It's just that I often try to listen to what people are not saying, because it's just as loud as what he was saying. Especially when, after the recordings, you have people who still went on Twitter Spaces or have had, audio streams, or went on YouTube to stream, and et cetera, and they're speaking and criticizing the words that the man said. It just shows me a lot. Like, wow, you're still on your quest to get his attention. Meanwhile, it's not working. If you built a product, if you built a project and it's working for the people, then that in and of itself should bear enough merit where you don't need to prove anything else, but you still on a quest to seemingly chase some fictitious clout when a man has something greater on his hands that I'm sure he wouldn't want to wish for you to have to deal with. You see? But y'all too egotistical and too filled with pride. It's just what it is. So in closing, I want to say, time is going to reveal everything that we need to see, I guess. Right? Because imagine everything that's going on. Some people still believe to this day, some builders rather, and retail people, investors, whatever, believe that Richard is sitting on the sacrifice monies, right? And that those sacrifice funds should basically flood the coins with liquidity. Flood the liquidity pool with those coins so that everybody could cake up. That's what some people believe. And it's interesting because I often, what do you think the implications would be? What do you think the ramifications of doing something like that would be? Do people care? This is why I say a lot of times people simply don't care. What would be the legal consequences and ramifications of doing something like that? And I'm not even a lawyer. I could already tell you that just would just, that wouldn't jive. I don't think that would just jive in any type of investigation by some type of regulatory body hovering, trying to scrutinize everything that's going on with these coins, blockchains, dexes. People, instead of missing the mark, we have to really do some deep self introspection sometimes. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a moment, just to pretend to understand where they're coming from by just putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right? People have a lot to say, but what would they do if they were in his shoes? This is a situation where, he's probably isolated somewhere. He probably had to isolate himself. I don't know the man's personal life or anything like that, but you don't know what people are going through. And everybody got a story. And it's not me making an excuse. I'm just observing what's being shown and what's being said. A person who launched a deck said that they are using the sacrifice monies, that one of the best things, a strategy that could be done is to inject liquidity among the pairs in a specific dex that was launched. And where do you get the liquidity from? The sacrifice funds. And then was even bold enough to say, compare that to what's not being done with Pulse X. This is why I brought this up, because this is the sentiment of what different people believe. But they're not going through what RH is going through. You don't know. Everyone could say something until something has happened to them. Everyone can have an opinion on what they're going to do, what they could have done, should have done, would have done in any type of situation until the situation presents itself towards them. I don't envy RH, like let the man do him. Like he's doing him. He said he's working every day, and people criticize that. Working in what capacity? What are you doing? What could he be doing? Like, you have nothing else better to do but to break down every syllable, every connotation, the tone and inflection of his voice. And to some extent, maybe that's what I'm doing too, because I'm talking about the breaking down of the audio, but not to an extent where you're criticizing every single thing the man has said. Oh, he's working. He said he's working 7 days a week. From the time he gets up to when he goes to sleep. He's working for us. I mean, what are you working on? Pulse chain and pulse X is already here. What could you be possibly working on? Like, could be anything. Could be many things. We don't know. Does it matter? Does it matter? When you were often told over the years, he works for nobody. So you also have to understand what people are not saying and read between the lines, where folks are just too literal. They think on the surface too often. You see situations where people talk about pooling funds and working on behalf of others to create money, making opportunities and profits. You see this all the time. They'll even use the terms. They'll use these terms like pool, like enterprise, like profit. And it's like, folks, and what I mean by they'll use the terms, people create things in this community to basically say to the SCCA, listen, we're doing something that goes hand in hand with everything the Howey test is about. Yes, they want to pass the Howey test. Good job. Like, that's not good for those who don't understand what I'm saying. That's actually bad. Like, it's not good to be passing the Howey test. People have modeled RH's style, creating things and saying they're giving it away. They're giving it away to community. Who has said he's the giving tree of crypto? So you modeling his style of doing things. You have enough wherewithal to do that, but you don't have like the certain semblance of decency to keep the disrespect to yourself. How many projects have already mimicked the OA? For example, this is what I'm talking about. Think, people, like, how many projects already have mimicked the OA actively right now? So, you never know what somebody's going through, despite what you may see on the surface. It is what it is. All right, folks. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Take care.